So I don't know exactly where it stopped. Dogs got their barking in, and I'm too close to the end of this chapter to start over. Okay. Men responded to their partners in two ways. When they described themselves as secure with relationships, they became even more supportive than usual, touching and smiling at their partners and offering comfort. If they described themselves as uncomfortable with attachment needs, they became markedly less sympathetic when their partners expressed their needs, downplaying their partner's distress, showing less warmth, and touching less. Point two, when we feel safely linked to our partners, we more easily roll with hurts that inevitably inflict, and we are less likely to be aggressively hostile when we get mad at them. Mario Mikulincer of Barlin University in Israel conducted a series of studies asking participants questions about how connected they felt in relationships and how they dealt with anger when conflict arose. Their heart rates were monitored as they responded to scenarios of couples in conflict. Those who felt close to and could depend on patterns reported feeling less angry with and attributing less malicious intent to their partners. They described themselves as expressing anger in a more controlled way and expressed more positive goals such as solving the problems and reconnecting with their partners. Point three, secure connections to a loved one is empowering. In a group of studies, Mikulincer showed that when we feel safely connected to others, we understand ourselves better and like ourselves more. When given a list of adjectives to describe themselves, the more secure folks picked out positive traits. And when asked about their weak points, they readily said they fell short of their own ideals, but still felt good about themselves. Mikulincer also found, as Bowlby predicted, that securely bonded adults were curious and more open to new information. They were comfortable with ambiguity, saying they liked questions that could be answered in many different ways. In one task, a person's behavior was described to them, and they were asked to evaluate this person's negative and positive traits. Connected participants more easily absorbed new information about the person and revised their assessments. Openness to experience and flexibility of belief seems to be easier when we feel safe and connected to others. Curiosity comes out of a sense of safety, rigidity out of being vigilant to threats. Point four, the more we can reach out to our partners, the more separate and independent we can be. Although this flies in the face of our culture's creed for self-sufficiency, psychologist Brooke Feeney of Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh found exactly that in observation of 280 couples, those who felt their needs were accepted by their partners were more confident about solving problems on their own and were more likely to successfully achieve their own goals. A wealth of evidence. Science from all fields is telling us very clearly that we are not only social animals, but animals who need a special kind of close connection with others. And we deny this at our peril. Indeed, historians long ago observed that in the death camps of World War II, the unit of survival was the pair, not the solitary individual. It's long been known, too, that married men and women generally live longer than do single peers. Having close ties with others is vital to every aspect of our health, mental, emotional, and physical. Louis Hawkley of the Center of Cognitive and Social Neurosciences at the University of Chicago calculates that loneliness raises blood pressure to the point where the risk of heart attack and stroke is doubled. Sociologist James House of the University of Michigan declares that emotional isolation is a more dangerous health risk than smoking or high blood pressure. And we now warn everyone about these two. Perhaps these findings reflect the time-honored saying, suffering is a given, suffering alone is intolerable. But it's not just whether or not we have close relationships in our lives. The quality of those relationships matters too. Negative relationships undermine our health. In Cleveland, researchers at Case Western Reserve University asked men with a history of angina and high blood pressure, does your wife show her love? Those who answered no suffered almost twice as many angina episodes during the next 5 years as did those who replied yes. Women's hearts are affected too. Women who view their marriage as strained and have regular hostile interactions with their partners are more likely to have significantly elevated blood pressure, and higher levels of stress hormones compared with women in a happy marriage. Yet another study found that women who had had a heart attack stood a threefold higher risk of having another if there was discord in their marriage. In men and women with congestive heart failure, the state of the patient's marriage is a good and predictor of survival after 4 years at the severity of the symptoms and degree of impairment, concludes Jim Coyne, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania. The poets who made the heart the symbol of love would surely smile at scientists' conclusion that the strength of people's hearts cannot be separated from the strength of their love relationships. Distress in a relationship adversely affects our immune and hormonal systems, and even our ability to heal. In one fascinating experiment, psychologist Janice Kelt-Glasser of Ohio State University had newlyweds fight, then took blood samples over the next several hours. She found that the more belligerent and contemptuous the partners were, the higher the level of stress hormones and the more depressed the immune system. The effects persisted for up to 24 hours. In an even more astounding study, Kegel-Glasser used a vacuum pump to produce small blisters on the hands of women volunteers, then had them fight with their husbands. The nastier the fight, the longer it took the women's skin to heal. The quality of our love relationships is also a big factor in how mentally and emotionally healthy we are. We have an epidemic of anxiety and depression in our most affluent societies. Conflict with the hostile criticisms from loved ones increase our self-doubts and create a sense of helplessness. Classic triggers for depression. We need validation from our loved ones. Researchers say that marital distress raises the risk for depression tenfold. That's the bad news. But there's good news too. Hundreds of studies now show that positive love connections with others protect us from the stress and help us cope better with life's challenges and traumas. Israeli researchers report that couples with a secure emotional attachment are much more able to deal with the dangers such as a Scud missile attack than other less connected couples. They are less anxious and have fewer physical problems after attacks. Simply holding the hand of a loving partner can affect us profoundly, literally calming jittery neurons in the brain. Psychologist Jim Cohn at the University of Virginia told women patients having an MRI brain scan that when a little red light on the machine come on, they may receive a small electric shock on their feet, or they may not. This information lit up the stress centers in patients' brains, but when partners held their hands, the patients registered less stress. When they were shocked, they experienced less pain. This effect was noticeably stronger in the happiest relationships, the ones where partners scored high on measures of satisfaction, and that the researchers called as super couples. Contact with a loving partner literally acts as a buffer against shock, stress, and pain. The people we love, asserts Cohn, are the hidden regulators of our bodily process and our emotional lives. When love doesn't work, we hurt. Indeed, hurt feelings is a precisely accurate phrase, according to psychologist Naomi Eisenberg of the University of California. Her brain imaging studies show that rejection and exclusion trigger the same circuits in the same part of the brain, the anterior cingulate, as physical pain. In fact, this part of the brain turns on anytime we are emotionally separated from those who are close to us. When I read this study, I remember being shocked by my own physical experience of grief. After hearing that my mother had died, I felt battered, like I had literally been hit by a truck. And when we are close to, hold, or make love with our partners, we are flooded with the cuddle hormones, oxytocin, and vasopressin. These hormones seem to turn on reward centers in the brain, flooding us with calm and happiness chemicals like dopamine and turning off stress hormones like cortisol. We've come a long way in our understanding of love and importance. In 1939, women ranked love fifth as a factor in choosing a mate. By the 1990s, it's topped the list for both women and men. And college students now say their key expectation from marriage is emotional security. Love is not the icing on the cake of life. It is a basic primary need, like oxygen or water. Once we understand and accept this, we can more easily get to the heart of relationship problems. So that's chapter 1.